Hello. Hey. Well, thanks for coming down in the rain. It's been pretty biblical, but it's lovely to see you all here. Welcome to Autograph. My name is Jodie Hawkins. I'm the engagement curator here, and we're really delighted to be hosting tonight's event, School and the Migrant Experience in Britain. This evening we'll be exploring how education shapes identity, belonging and aspiration. I'm going to keep it brief before handing over to Yannick, but for those of you who are new to the gallery, welcome to Autograph. For over 35 years, we've been sharing the work of artists who use photography and film to highlight questions around race, representation, human rights and social justice. And tonight's discussion is part of our Open Call programme, where we invite people to propose event ideas connected to themes of our current exhibition. And this season's Open Call is inspired by our upstairs exhibition, Diane Minakuchi, Belonging and Beyond. At the heart of Diane's show, at the heart of Diane's show is her role as a secondary school photography teacher, and the photographs on display, which you're very welcome to go and have a look at after this talk, grew out of her collaboration with her students. So for 6 months she brought her studio into the classroom, challenging traditional hierarchies and reframing the studio as a space for shared dialogue and inquiry with her students. So when Yannick's proposal came through, we were so excited to host it here at the gallery. Yannick is the founder of the education podcast To Call for School and former head of year at a London secondary school. And we're delighted that this is going to be an episode on the podcast. And so just a quick note on that if you would like to ask a question at the end, please wait for the mic so that we can pick it up for the podcast. And after the panel, we'll be having refreshments in the studio next door. Please do join us. And you'll also be able to respond to some prompts about your experience in education. So yeah, we'd love to hear your reflections. But thank you so much. I'm going to pass over to Yannick, who, can I just say, you've been an absolute dream to work with. So yeah, thanks for your proposal and just sharing all your ideas. So you don't need this, do you? No. Cool, thanks.
Cool. Thank you again to Jolie and Harriet and the amazing team at Autograph for having me. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Yannick. I host an educational podcast called To Call for School, and I also work at a local authority in East London, currently sort of overseeing children missing in education and attendance. So a lot of what I do is around education. And when this proposal came in mind, I really thought about how can I use and engage the people that are close to me in order to share what, the intergenerational perspectives and how that looks like within, my particular experiences of education. And, I've always wanted my mum on a podcast, but I didn't know how I would be able to navigate that. And that, this was a great opportunity, to do that. And I've had Nick on a previous podcast episode, and he loves to talk anyway, so it was easy to get Nick back to work with us. So we'll crack on. And to start off, Mum, I wanted to ask, when you first arrived in the UK, what did you notice about schools in the UK, and what was different to schools in the UK compared to back home in Congo?
Thank you, Yannick, for this question. When I first came to UK, I noticed that there is a diversity in schools, and also the school, the system is good, and also it was funded properly. And compared to Congo, at that time, it's been only 5 years that the children now began to have a free school, because your parent has to pay from nursery, primary school, up to university. It's only 5 years ago that they began with only primary school. So I compare that, here the children go to school, the parents don't need to pay. So back in Congo, if you don't have money, your children will be at home. So you need to have money to send them at school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you first, you know, came here and you were supporting me in my education here in the UK, like, what was the hardest part for you? Because this was a system that you wasn't familiar with. So what was the most difficult thing for you?
Yeah, first of all, you know, we are French speaker in Congo. The language was a barrier for me first, so it was difficult. So I have to go to study so to be able to help you, because I didn't want you to stop talking in French. At the same time, you have to go to school, and at school you have to speak English. So I was between the both, but I have to give up French, because me, myself, I need to learn to speak English, and I have to help you with your homework. So this was so difficult as a moment for me, because we have to give up that bit, and for me to be able to help you on your homework.
And by the way, I barely know French now, and my English is perfect, so I blame my mum for that. But I've been back on Duolingo learning the French, so that's good. And Nick, I wanted to know, do you have any sort of similar experiences of challenges you faced in terms of how your parents, you know, supported you when you was trying to navigate through school?
Not necessarily, because by the time that I was born, my parents had been in the country for quite a while. So they were pretty good English speakers. My dad had studied previously in the UK already and done a degree, so he was pretty good in English. But sometimes I think my parents, and to this day, they're still not used to the English system, so they might not necessarily understand what's going on. They are quite old school, so sometimes, especially during COVID, they didn't necessarily understand why I wasn't in school. Like, they were thinking like, oh, why are you studying on a computer? Like, where are your books? And I have to explain to them, everything's online now. So the system is quite foreign to them sometimes, education.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, and I think, you know, you both highlight, you know, the impact of language, especially for parents trying to navigate the education system, and how important, you know, language is, because for many of us who, you know, aren't born here, or first, second gen immigrants, or are from family that are from non-English speaking backgrounds, we often find those challenges within education, because parents are struggling to interpret, parents are struggling, you know, to translate, and there's not always necessarily someone who is there to support them with that. And as you said, Nick, even if your parents are you know, well-spoken and have a good grasp of English, there's still that understanding of, or there's still that lack of understanding of what, you know, the school system looks like. So I think for those who are educators, perhaps it's easier for us because we work in those systems. So we know, you know, when my son grows up and they're navigating this through primary school, or my daughter's navigating this through secondary, I've got a good grasp of what the system looks like. But when you're not working in that system, you know, it's sometimes difficult. So I wanted to, so going back to you, Nick, I wanted to ask, you know, when you think back to school, what's the first sort of image or memory you have of me as your head of year? And bearing in mind, I'm sitting very close to you.
I was going to say ruthless dictator, but that wouldn't be true. But I think it was almost like a secondary father figure, almost, because in like going through school, like you're always told by your parents, like, oh, you're black, remember, you always have to work harder. But having a black head of year that almost, like, you almost saw them as like an older brother that you'll be able to reason. Because I remember there's a lot of times when we got in trouble for really, really stupid things, and instead of you like throwing down the hammer and just getting us in trouble or excluding us, you would reason with us first and try to see both perspectives. And that's something that I didn't see in other teachers before, because we were just used to getting in trouble straight away and like no one trying to listen to us. As well, guidance as well, because a lot of the times you would have teachers who would just tell you off straight away, but they wouldn't tell you necessarily what you need to do next as well. And sometimes, I feel like sometimes you knew when we were going to do something stupid, and you kind of just checked us. So, like, sometimes you'll just randomly pull us to the side and have a little conversation, and there's not many teachers who kind of have like a genuine conversation you can talk to them. And that's why like, you're one of the few teachers that like, I'd say I'll remember for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mum, how about you as well? What were your sort of initial thoughts when, you know, I sort of told you that, yeah, this was the role that I'm going into and I'm becoming a head of year?
Yeah, I was so happy. Straight on, something came up in my mind. I remember when you were in the sixth form, you were prefect. So I remember you were coming all the time to tell me the story, how you were helping others, students that were in trouble. So I was saying to myself that you're going to do it very well, because there is some skills that when you are prefect, leadership, so you find it also in the head of here. And from your character, I know that you always plan things and you do it very well. Yeah. Looking at the children, I knew that you're going to do a good job. Yeah. You're going to help them. Amen.
And not amen.
Because it's what all the time coming my mouth, sorry.
I think both perspectives just really highlight the importance of perspective essentially, because when you go into like a new role, or when you go into a position, or when you take on a project, you don't necessarily know how you're perceived and how others are, you know, perceiving you, you know, within that role. So even hearing, you know, from my mum and hearing from Nick, these weren't necessarily things that they would have said to me, you know, at the time. And, you know, I was having a conversation with someone here earlier, I can't remember who, and I was talking about when I first started that role, I was 26 years old, and I just had this like imposter syndrome. Like, what on earth am I doing, you know, in this role? And you're looking at all of the other middle leaders and senior leaders when you're having the meetings, and it's like, you know, there were times when I felt that, you know, I didn't fit in, or there were times when, you know, I struggled. But for other students and other, you know, staff members, they're seeing me as, okay, a brother, a father figure, a leader, and whatever else. But I necessarily wasn't seeing myself in that way. So yeah, I think perspective is really, really important, definitely. Nick, were there any particular lessons, sayings, or moments that stuck with you during our time at school that you still sort of live by or try to stick to?
I remember, I'll never forget this. I remember it was during COVID, and then I got a call, my mum got a call on no call ID, and then on the other side I could just hear your voice telling me off for not doing homework. And I remember you were telling my mum what I wasn't doing, and at the same time you were telling her what I needed to do to catch up on work. And it really stuck with me because it's like, that's the only teacher that has actually like spoken to my mum properly and not just told them, oh, your son is so bad, they don't do any work, and just hung up the phone. But you actually try to, you're telling me off while also helping me at the same time, trying to find a solution to the problem at the time. And it kind of, it reminded me almost that like, there's not all teachers are just trying to tell you off. There's some teachers who are actually looking out for you. So yeah, that really helped me at the time. But I did get told off. I did get in trouble.
That's good to hear, and I think it's, you know, sort of hearing that is definitely for me like a proud moment, because it really shows the impact that many of us as, you know, educators, youth leaders, you know, those who work in the community, even parents, you know, when we're intentional with how we support, you know, how we support our young people, how we support our children, you can see, you know, the impact that will have long term. So I think it's a testament, the fact that I've been able to, you know, keep the good relationship that I have, you know, with Nick and many of my other former students. You know, I've got another former student here at the back, Charlie. Hello, Charlie. One of the other troublemakers turned good. So yeah, we'll keep it as that. But yeah, it's definitely a proud moment to be able to see both of them and to connect with the many others that I do online, and just to see the progress that they're making, because that's something that as educators we don't really get to see a lot, because they leave us, they move on, and you know, we often lose that connection. Mum, was there a moment for you that you felt proud of how you supported me through school?
Yeah, I think every moment of your stages in the school, I was proud in each year, because up to today, I keep the certificates. I've got them.
And there's a lot of certificates.
Yes, I've got them. I've got a big suitcase that all the certificates, because I wanted to understand also the system. So I have to keep every report that they have to give to me. So I was proud from your primary, secondary school, sixth form, university. I remember when you got your graduation, the way I was screaming, crying, and also your master's. So every part, every stage of your education, I was proud. So
okay.
I have to say that.
Okay, Mum, I'm going to quiz you. This is not on here. Can you name every school or every education establishment that I've been to in the UK?
The first one was Esedin School, but they destroyed the school. Then the second one was Portway. The third one, St. Anthony's School, St. Bonaventure School, sixth form also, St. Angeles and St. Bonaventure School, and the University of Canterbury at Kent, and you have your master's in East London University.
Wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Well done. You know, I thought you wasn't going to get S&D, so yeah, that was the first one. Oh, parents do really pay attention. And I want to go to Yannick, because one thing that I often talk about on my podcast, irrespective of who I have on, whether they're in education, healthcare, whether they work in the community, is about the importance of representation. And you know, you spoke on it a bit, but I wanted to ask, like, how did it feel to have someone who looked like you, especially in a leadership role at the school, and how did that sort of impact the way you saw yourself?
It was actually kind of cool, you know, like, it's really weird because a lot of senior leadership in all the schools I've been to, even the one I just left, they were all white. And it's weird because you almost can't relate to them, and you kind of almost feel like they don't understand where you're coming from, because you're brought from a different background. You see things different. Like it's one situation, but you guys see it from two different perspectives. So having someone that speaks like you, that looks like you, who understands where you're coming from, is way different, because there's so many different outcomes from one situation, and having someone that understood where you're coming from is almost like you knew you were getting the best outcome of the situation. Because like a lot of the times when you have many teachers, they're really old-fashioned, they don't understand your culture necessarily, or things you do, so you kind of don't feel understood. But with you, you can feel understood.
No, I appreciate that. And how do you feel like those experiences have sort of shaped the adult you've become today?
With you or with other? Well,
in general.
Generally speaking, I've almost come to accept that people might not always understand where I'm coming from sometimes because of the background in which I was brought up, and it comes from a place of like not their own fault, like it's just ignorance, they don't know necessarily, so I need to be able to see someone else's point of view. But at the same time, it also helps to remember that there's people in leadership roles who do understand where I'm coming from, and in a lot of institutions now, there are a lot of black leaders now, so I can appeal to them to see reason if like I need help or something. So, yeah.
No, that's amazing to hear, and I think it really highlights the importance of representation, especially in the different roles that we work in. And when I first joined the school, as Nick said, the representation amongst the leadership team, especially for people of color, even across middle leadership, was essentially non-existent, and I found that difficult. But then what I was really intentional about was, okay, I'm a leader, this is my background, what can I do for the students so that the students are seeing the benefit of me in that capacity as a leader, rather than thinking about, oh, I can't see diversity, that's going to limit what I'm doing, and that's not something that I wanted to do. So Mum, your education was totally different to mine and Nick's, because you were sort of educated abroad, and your influence was stemmed from a lot of your experiences abroad. In what ways did your life in Congo influence the way you raised me, especially in regards to education and learning?
Yeah, first of all, my mom, she was a teacher. I was looking the way she was doing the things, helping us, and that also inspired me that education is very important for the children. So that's why I was always put the education first, because I was raised in the house where they were helping me for me to be educated. My mom time, women were not going to school, they were not studying, but my mom, she was among those one first women, because she's now 87. At that time, not many women were going to school, so she was all the time telling us why it's important, because education shapes you and help you to find your true self.
No, thank you. Well, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. And if you think about your future generations, or like your grandkids and future grandkids, etc., what values or lessons about education do you want us as parents to keep alive or to teach them?
So the grandchildren or you must know that education is a lifelong process, because from the day one, you are learning until your last day. So you will have opportunity to learn many things. I've seen so many people, they will start with this option, then after, they find themselves in another. People have many skills, they can do many things, so there is a way that you can learn different ways, but education is a lifelong process. We learn every day, and we will always find things to learn. If you commit yourself, you will learn.
Yeah, no, I think that's important because, you know, for a lot of people, like, we have this idea of like education is just within the classroom, and because we've got that idea of it being just within the classroom, essentially what you end up doing is you're limiting yourself from accessing, you know, so much more learning opportunities. So yeah, that's amazing. Education is a lifelong process. And Nick, for you, what lessons or values have your parents taught you that you continue to keep alive regarding education?
I don't know if it's just an African thing, but all parents keep saying, like, you never stop learning. Like, they keep telling me that.
Yeah. I don't know whether, are there any Caribbeans? Miss Shyla, is that a thing? Yeah, never, okay.
Yeah, because
it's an everyone thing.
It's hammered down so much, like, as well. I think one of the things is that education is like one of the only paths for us. Like, the majority of us aren't athletes, or we weren't born into really rich families. So education is like our ticket to freedom almost. And my parents always hammered down, like, without you, if you're not learning, like, you're basically doing nothing, like, you're wasting your time. And I think every single day you can learn something subconsciously, like, you're always learning something. And I think if you choose not to learn, then you're a fool, because, like, there's like a quote that says, like, a man who doesn't ask a question is a fool. The man who asks a question is a fool for 1 minute, but the one who doesn't ask a question is a fool for the rest of his life. And I think my parents always told me, if you don't know, just ask. Because sometimes, like, you're in like an uncomfortable situation and you don't want to ask a question, well, then you just don't know. But, like, if you ask a question, you learn so much, and that's how a lot of connections started with people across, like, the entire country, just because I asked questions. And then it started into a whole conversation and led to something else, and it took me places that I never thought I'd be. So I think that's one thing that my parents taught me really well. That's
amazing, and keep asking those questions, so well done. And as we sort of start to round up, if you could go back and speak to, you know, your younger self, what is one thing you would say about education, identity, or belonging?
I could say a million things to my younger self, but if there's one thing I'd say is, I think just keep going, you know, and don't give up. Because, like, we live in a very good education, like, we have a very good education system in this country. And I feel like sometimes we forget that, like, we were very fortunate. And sometimes you go into school and we don't want to work. But I think if I was to look back at it now, and if I had kept working, I think, like, I would have been in a much better place education-wise, like, if I just kept on trying hard. And some days you feel like, oh no, I just don't want to do this, but we have an education system in this country where if you genuinely work hard and you get the results, the world's your oyster, like, you can do anything. So it's just keep working.
Yeah. And Mum, how about you? If you could speak to your younger self, what's one thing that, you know, you would say about education, identity, or belonging?
So I can say that you have something in you that somebody also needs, that you can discover it if you want, then you can transform other people's lives around you. Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful. Am I doing it right? Yeah. Perfect. You've got that on camera. You've got that. If there was one thing I would say to my younger self about maybe not education, because I don't think there's anything that I would change in that respect, but around identity, I would say, is it that Shakespeare quote, like, be true to thine self? Because there were many times where I felt like I was trying to fit in with other people, or trying to not embrace, you know, the things that I enjoyed or the things that I liked, you know, doing, because it may not have been perceived as cool or whatever else, or the way I would like to dress, or any of those things. And that's, you know, that's one of the things that I really liked about seeing the students grow as head of year, is because from year 7 to year 11, their identity never changed. Like the generation now, they're so confident and boisterous and in your face, and this is who I am, that I just felt like, you know, that was amazing. I remember my first year as a head of year, and one of the kids were like, "Oh, sir, do you watch anime?" And I was like, "Anime? No, that's dead, man. What are you talking about?" But I do watch anime. And that summer they recommended for me to watch Naruto, and I've never watched that. And I watched it, came back the next summer, and the remaining years at school was like, I'm doing Marvel competition, quizzes, and all of these sort of things. And I just realized that actually something that I was trying to hide in adulthood, like they're just open about, you know, like their sort of personality and their identity. And that's something that, you know, I really took on board, and I embraced. So again, thank you both to Nick and to my mum for engaging in that conversation, and I hope in small part it sheds a light or gives, you know, a sort of perspective onto like the different intergenerational, you know, perspectives, and how in some way we've all woven and had an impact on each other's life, which has, you know, cultivated either shared values or even in discussion highlighted that, you know, there's many sort of similarities in our values and our mindsets which we would not necessarily have been privy to, and whether that's something that has just happened naturally or through like the experiences that we've had. It's just amazing to have that conversation. So before we finish off and allow for some networking and refreshments at the back, this is an opportunity if anyone has any questions for myself, for Mum or Nick, or just a broad set of questions for both of us, please raise your hands and Harriet will come round with the microphone.
I've got a mic, so please speak into it so the recording can pick it up.
Now, firstly, Yannick, well done. This is an amazing event. Very proud of you, so well done for getting us over the line. But this question is for Mum. So, you was born in Congo, Mum, and you came to the UK. So you came to the UK with your own culture and everything that you knew about Congo, right? So you came to adapt to a new way of living. What advice would you give to young parents who are first generation and are raising young boys and girls now? What advice would you give to them to be able to still instill that culture of where they're from, if that makes sense? So where their parents are from. Because a lot of parents nowadays, you know, there's a lot of like mixed marriages and stuff. So how would you say that we can, you know, educate them to make sure they know where they're from and know their values and their culture as well?
Yeah, for the young generation, I will tell them that you have to keep your culture, but also because you came to another country, you have also to integrate. So you have to have a double job. You have to get the good one that you know that you can adjust. For example, we as in Congo, Yannick can call me on my name. So even though we are in United Kingdom, he can call me Ellen. I'm not going to accept it. So he knows. And I've been seeing his own son calling him daddy. So because we back home, everybody that is at the age of your mom, you call him mom, auntie, dad, or uncle. So you can't call them by their name. So here they call their parents with their name, is their culture. So you can't change it because you are in a United Kingdom. So our kids, they have to continue. We have to teach them how we are doing at home. So they can't change it, but they have to adapt also, but not taking what we don't have. So there is some stuff is the same, but some stuff is not the same. Those ones that we feel that we don't want to take them, so we're not going to take them. We can't sell it. Yeah.
So we've got a question here, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, it's a question for Yannick. Well done. This is a brilliant event. Just wanted to ask you directly how you worked with Nick and some of your other pupils. Did you take anything from school? Like, did you put in things that you got from your own experiences? Because it sounds like the pupils gravitated to you and they related to you. And I'm sure that's just not because you're black, maybe because of other aspects as well.
Yeah, when I first started the role, there were many parents who would look at me and say, "Sir, look after my son." And the way that they would say it, like, I've already felt that weight on me. But the weight was, as daunting as the weight was, it was also motivation, because it meant that I had to, it meant that I had a sense of having to go above and beyond. So there were many times that I was head of year, but there were other times where I was speaking to these students as their dads, as a father type, figure. And I feel for me personally, and this is only upon reflection, me growing up and my dad passing away when I was younger only added that additional sense of, you know what, I want to go hard for my students. You know, I want to go, and it's not even just for the students that I saw that looked like me, because when I left after 5 years, I was reading cards from students who would say, "Sir, you was like a dad to me." Doesn't matter what color the student was. He was like a dad to me, and I'm thinking, but you've got a dad. Like, but it was that impact of, my presence in their lives. So that was the thing that did it for me. Certain teachers, would come to school, they're doing their 8 to 3 or 9 to 5, whatever you call it, and are not going above and beyond. But that wasn't me. That role wasn't just a job for me. It was so much more, and that's why, I'm really proud to see the progress and the impact that it's had on, on many of my students.
Did you have one? Okay, so go to you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this evening. Mum, hardest job in the world, parenting. And look at the result. Student, I'm sitting here with lots of thoughts going on in my head. Yannick, I am a retired head teacher at primary and special needs secondary. I was interested when you touched on imposter syndrome. And what I would like to know, as a black leader, one, how did you navigate that route and those thoughts? And two, what would you say to any teachers in this room who are looking to move into leadership? What advice would you give them? Big question, I know, but...
Yeah. Two things. The first on how I navigated that, you're your biggest champion. If I've got one of my colleagues here, he's a current colleague but also former colleague as well. He's just been following me around. So we worked together as a head of year, and he knows that I used to walk into that office and I used to call myself the people's champion. That was like my motivation. I'm the people's champion. And that came from literally championing the students that I support. But it also came from one of my favorite wrestlers, The Rock. That aura. I was going into school and I just had that aura of, no, I'm motivating myself. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what senior leader is saying to students. Well, I'm the deputy head, so I don't care what Mr. Bedito has said, but the students are going to listen to me and not you, because it's not about the ranking, but it's about, my confidence, my leadership, and what the students see in me. So motivate yourself, like literally champion yourself. And doing that talked myself out of that idea of, of me being an imposter in that role. I literally talked myself out of it to the point where I left there and it was already chest puffed up, that anxiety and that, and that feeling, like it went away within. It took a while. I'll say I was there for 5 years. I'll say about a year and a half, but it was gradual. And in terms of being in those positions of leadership, you need to show that you belong. You need to show that you belong, and you need to be confident in how you're both upskilling yourself and what you're bringing to the table. I'm someone that I'm always, and it's interesting because my mum mentioned it earlier, I'm always trying to learn. Like what training can I do? Even if it's a one-day training, a half-day training, how can I upskill myself? Who can I talk to that's, within these areas in education who will upskill me? Like there's so many times, and I've got so many friends here who work in different parts of education. I'm having conversations with them. Like I was having a conversation with my good friend Nana here, who's an SEN consultant, and we was talking about like the proposals around like EHCP changes that the government are trying to do, because I want to learn about it, because at some point a parent or an educator or someone in a leadership position might, want to ask me about it. And just through those conversations, I'm constantly upskilling myself and showing when I'm in those spaces that I belong in those spaces. Because often I walk in and they see me and they think, oh, who's this? What's their role? But as soon as I start talking, okay, yeah, put him in the front. This is the guy. He's facilitating all of this. And it's about really showing that you belong there. So long-winded question, long-winded answer. I apologize.
No.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Yes, please. Yeah. Good evening, Yannick. Good evening, Nick. Good evening, Mum. First of all, I just want to highlight you are doing a really great job. I've been following you for some time. My background's in education. Been in pastoral leadership for the last 3 or 4 years, very similar to yourself in the sense that I went St. Bonaventures too. But to cut to the chase, my question is, it's quite clear to me that you knew you had an impact in those roles. You knew that you were walking into environments, and it sounded to me...
Sorry, the impact on what?
You knew that you were having an impact within your role. Like
Yeah,
it's very clear to me that you would walk in every single day knowing that there's an intention and purpose behind what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it's very clear that you've got a student here who's able to articulate the impacts that you've had on him. But at some point I heard you say that within those school environment, or the specific school environment that you were in, sometimes you would walk in and you would feel like you didn't fit in, and there were struggles you were feeling. And it's something I can resonate with, so I just wanted you to explain what were those specific things that you would struggle with, and what did you feel like you didn't fit in with?
I think for me, the struggles were sort of everyday struggles. You know, you come into work, you've got bills, you've got family, you've got stuff going on. It could be health, but then we walk into these places of work and there's people that need us as the practitioner. They don't care about your bills and whatever else. So all of a sudden, it's as soon as you walk into that door, it's a bit like Clark Kent. You've got to come out the photo booth with your S on, because that's who they need. So often we're always having to do more and be more to support others. And we don't necessarily take the time back or the time out to step back and say, you know what, like we're struggling, we're struggling. And the first time I did that within the education setting is when, I can't remember what year it was, when my mum, she's better now, but she was diagnosed with cancer. And I told my students, and I said, you know what, this is an assembly. I said, guys, I'm struggling right now. Like, mum's going through this, so I might not be, the head of year that you need me to be right now, but I need to be transparent with you guys, because when they come in and they need that Superman and I can't be that Superman, I don't know what I'm going to give them. And then having that transparency, really made a difference. So whatever struggles that you're going with, and it's not saying go to that extreme, but you need to be able to communicate, let people know that, usually I'm that guy, but on this occasion, I'm really struggling, because that communication, just letting that out, does so much for your mental health and your well-being, which is something that throughout the course of the 5 years I struggled with, because I tried to be the Superman. That 5 years is the most that I gave, but also the most that I struggled with. So, and I've mentioned this before, so I don't mind sharing. I remember I started to get a bald patch in my hair. Went to the barber. Barber was like, "Oh, you got a bald patch?" I said, "I'm 28. Come on, man. This is." It was like, "Oh, I've seen this a lot with like my customers. It could be stressed and da da da." I'm like, "Damn, what am I stressed about at this age?" Because you're giving so much. I'm not even thinking about the traveling, where I was living and traveling at the time. I'm leaving my house at 6 a.m. to get to work. I'm getting back home 6, 7, 8 p.m. and then you're repeating that cycle. You can't go to sleep because you're thinking about this safeguarding issue. Like, I've got work emails on my personal phone. It was just like, it was a lot to manage that.
Did that then lead, so currently you're still in education, but you're working? You're still in education right now, but you're leveraging yourself differently. So was that a factor in you making 100%. That decision?
100%. I said, I said, I can't do this. So anyone that works, and I know I've got, so many colleagues here that are still in education, kudos to you guys, because that cannot be me again. Like, there is nothing that can, not in the position that I'm in now. That was, and I miss those, and I miss the kids like so much, but it was difficult. It was difficult. If you're able to manage it and you feel like, my mental health, can manage it, but I was struggling. Like, I really struggled. The 4th, 5th year, COVID as well, didn't help, especially in my role, because it was pastoral head of year and a lot of my stuff meant engaging with students. There's no students. I'm not on Google Classroom. I'm not delivering a thing. No one had prepared for it. Like Nick said, I'm calling parents, private number. They're not answering. I literally spent that whole year at home just worried about students, and that's the only time that I ever felt useless in my role. Yeah.
I think we've got time for one more.
I just want to start off by saying...
You can take the last two. Yeah? Rikisha and David. Rikisha and David after. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you.
I just want to start off by saying this has been extremely inspirational. So thank you. So I'm a teacher and deputy head of year. I've got one question. So when you were in your role of head of year, you mentioned you were 26 at the time. Were you ever faced with parents not taking you seriously because of your age and the way you looked?
Yeah, I did initially, but over time, parents, when I'm going to reference something, but parents, when they see that, you're good at your job and you're supporting them and you're supporting, their child, but you've got to earn that as well, because as much as there's some good educators, there's also some some not so good educators, and it's about having to really prove yourself in those roles, and that happened. And I remember, I'm not sure if he was in school then, it might have even been Nick, an old YouTube video of me and some of my friends MCing and rapping surfaced the school at some point, and then a parent emailed into the school because they didn't like a sanction that I gave to their child, saying, well, I don't want this gangster being my head of year. But we squashed it, we're good now. But that was an odd, experience. But yeah, you just got to prove yourself. David?
Thank you. Again, it's been an insightful conversation, so thank you to you all. When you was answering this gentleman's question, as a therapist and trainer, I couldn't just help myself but think about teachers generally, and I've worked in education in the past, in a pastoral setting where you're pouring so much out of your cup that sometimes it's hard to fill up your own. And of course, you reach that breaking point where it's like, okay, I need to move out this setting to elsewhere. But I guess I'm wondering, what does, and I guess also as you were sharing, this idea of empathy fatigue also came to mind as well, and I wonder that there might be teachers in this room that are going through that, and I'm thinking about the statistics that talk about burnout for teachers, and mental health and well-being being really central to that. So my question to you is, in two parts, what does pouring back into your cup look for you now? And for teachers that are almost on that brink of burnout, maybe questioning, should I stay in this? What would you say to them in terms of maybe ways or resources that they can access to fill their cup to?
What that looks like for me now is running praying, church, family, friends, the podcast. It's just anything that makes me happy, you know, putting myself first, really. And I guess for teachers now, if you need a break, then you need to put your foot on the gas and say, you know what, I need a day off. I don't recall, and you know, my colleagues are here, I don't recall taking days off. The one day I took off, I didn't even take off. Something happened, I had to go to hospital, and I was on crutches. 4 days I came back to school, there was a riot. There was a riot in the school, kids were on the playground, I'm just there on my crutch. I'm like, the 4 days that I'm off and I'm not even in school, like this whole thing like happens. But I needed the time off, because otherwise I would have been, knowing me, I would have been, if this was the first 2 years, I would have been walking around the school in crutches. But year 4, year 5, I said, yeah, forget that, man. I'm chilling at home. So just really use those moments to recover. We don't get annual leaves and whatever else, but I guarantee you from experience, there are colleagues that take time off for less than what you actually need the time for. So if you need that time off, take it off. And last question, Rakisha.
Thank you. It's really good to hear the conversation, and well done again. Like, it's amazing. You can tell how proud your mum is of you, so that must be nice as well. I guess my question is to you and Nick. It's just, we started the new academic year. I'm sure people would have had their training and like the exam results of, you know, black boys not doing well and the disproportion. So my question would be to both of you is, what needs to change within the education system, be it for the students, the teachers, but also the support staff? Because I feel like teachers and support staff, they're not seen to be on the same level within the education system, which is unfortunate, because without the support staff, there would be no running of the school. But that's for another day. So yeah, what needs to change basically for, you know, students who are black, but also those who are at serious disadvantage?
I think in and of itself, it's not necessarily the education system that's at fault. I think it's like the society that we live in. We've become very comfortable to have an environment where black young boys are comfortable not doing well in education because there's other paths necessarily. And I was quite fortunate to go to 2 good schools where we had very good exam results and the people around us were very like-minded. But I know other individuals who went to different schools where even, you know, people normally like in a day-to-day, like they don't care about school because they have another way to make money. And I think education is more of a long-term investment, whereas as a society we've become comfortable with telling people to get money now and enjoy now. And I think the education system itself is okay. People are learning and people are succeeding. We need to change it on a societal level and tell people, invest in yourself. You need to become comfortable with suffering now, going through the education system, so later on you can pluck the fruits from the tree of education.
Yeah, I think I would echo Nick's sentiments, because everything that we're doing now in society, for me, I feel like it's society versus the new age of like technology and social media. And those sort of things. So it's important that we still have communities, we still have families who see the importance of education, and not just in terms of the curriculum, but the things that you learn from education that will support you in the future. And you know, I've had conversations with one of my friends here about a former student who was on the cusp of professional football, but the attitude, the organisation, the punctuality in school wasn't where it needed to be. And you could see from that sort of attitude in school that it was sort of filtering into, you know, the football. So it's not just about what you're learning in the classroom, but what are the things that education supports you with, you know, like within your family, within the community, that people are missing, you know, are missing out on. And the fact that we're having like younger and younger, you know, parents, and it's so easy to just put iPad in front of a child and do all of these things. And as Nick mentioned, all of these things on TikTok around, or social media about, you know, quick money schemes and whatever else. Like, education might not look as appealing, but it's always, I think it's really important that as a community, we still create that, as a people, we go back to creating that sense of community and highlighting education as an important cog within the community system.
Finish there.
Do you want me to explain the phone thing?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Cool. So we've got refreshments and stuff at the back. And there's a table with like an old school, what's those telephones called? The dial phones thing, where there's a recording, and the recording is of me asking the question, if you could speak to your younger self, what is one lesson you would share about identity, education, or belonging? And there's a beep. Right after the beep, please feel free to just leave a message or your thoughts in regards to that question, and we'll sort of collate it and put it together and do like an exciting sort of, you know, collation of your audio responses. But feel free to make your way to the back, help yourself to refreshments.
Yeah, and a reminder that the show is on upstairs, and there's a lot of things.
Oh, it's open.
It's open. Yeah, we opened it because just speaking about this idea of don't I really use this? We built this residency because we recognise that often teachers go into education with a subject that they're really passionate about, and the kind of bureaucracy of the system, and getting, you know, the kind of the stresses and the pressures and the worries of getting students through the curriculum means you can lose that passion or that time. And so Di predominantly is a photography teacher, but this residency has given her the opportunity to make a new body of work. And so when you see the show, you wouldn't know that she's primarily a photography teacher. The show has been curated with a similar budget to Eileen Perrier's show downstairs. And so we really wanted to platform Di as the artist that she is, alongside the fact that she's a teacher. And in doing so, the relationship with her student has completely changed. And I thought it was really amazing what you said about this idea of vulnerability, because for the first time ever she's taken self-portraits, and for the first time ever she shared them with her students. And that shift in vulnerability and showing your kind of your worries and your you know, like things not necessarily being perfect, actually has only created connection. And yeah, her students came to the opening, and there's just so much to be said about nurturing teachers in a way that means that they're just better human beings and kind of, you know, more beneficial for students. I just want to say thank you. It was a really insightful conversation and total privilege to have it autographed. So yeah, go and mingle. I'll stop talking.
Thank you. Thank you. Josh, he was doing the videography today as well, so thank you, Josh. I appreciate you.